Good. Then I see we've got Charles has joined us online. Welcome, Charles. Thank you for agreeing to do this presentation. It's fantastic to have you here. As a quick introduction, the presenter for the session is Charles Abuki Kateeba. He's the former managing director for Uganda Railways Corporation. Charles joined the Uganda Railway Corporation as a trainee engineer in 1984, and in 1986 he was the first person to be posted at the Nalakulongu Central Locomotive Workshop to spearhead the installation and commissioning of workshop machinery and plants. In 2006, he was promoted to Chief Mechanical Engineer, and in 2013, he was appointed as Acting Managing Director, and in 2016, the same post was confirmed. He has since retired and is now engaged in consulting and small-scale farming. Charles, you must please tell us more about that. That sounds fascinating after an illustrious career with the Railway Corporation. And then Charles is also a member of the Uganda Institute of Professional Engineers, as well as the Society of Manufacturing Engineers in the USA. Lastly, he's also a member of the Board of Governors of Nakawa Vocational Training Institute. Thank you for joining us, Charles. We are looking forward to your presentation, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Marisa. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. The floor is all yours. Please go ahead.
I'll continue as if I'm... Okay, thank you very much. My introduction has been made. I'm glad to join this forum. Albeit the challenges of technology, I hope I'll be able to share what I have to share in the little time that is given. First of all, I will be talking about the general environment of doing business in Uganda, and I will also give a snapshot of what it takes to do business with Uganda Railways Corporation. Uganda is a very blessed country. It's actually at the center of Africa. It's almost the same distance from east to west and south to north, which makes it an ideal country for trading with the rest of Africa, because it's a natural choice for us to trade with the rest of Africa. Unfortunately, this hasn't been very well done, with the exception of our immediate neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania, Sudan, and DRC, mainly because we are landlocked and have had a very rough time with connecting infrastructure to the sea. But if you take that out, Uganda should be the ideal place to do business. What opportunities are available in Uganda? We mainly import engineering equipment, but we also heavily depend on foreign services for infrastructure development in rail, in water, in energy, and other IT infrastructure. Recently, we've discovered oil. So therefore, the oil and gas industry is also very active. Just last weekend, a major agreement was signed to enable the final investment decision to be made on the refinery and the pipeline for carrying oil to the port of Tanga in Tanzania. So that creates a huge opportunity for players both within and outside Africa. We have a good mining potential. So there is a lot of potential for mining and mineral processing, both metallic and non-metallic minerals. We do a lot of importation of consumer goods. Initially, it was mainly from Europe and within East Africa. Lately, we have a lot of influx of consumer goods from China, India, and other countries. Motor vehicles are a big import for Uganda, both used and new. The biggest market dominance is by Japanese cars, but we also have a few European cars, namely German, Italian, and now a few trucks and buses from China. Being in the railway sector, I will be talking later a little more about the potential in the rail sector. But Uganda heavily depends on foreign imports for both rail equipment and all support supplies and services. This is interesting because over the last 40 years, Uganda has imported a lot of spares and other equipment out of South Africa. But unfortunately, it has largely been through European consolidators. So this is an area where I personally have been talking with the South African companies, and we've had a few successes. Just recently, we're importing 4 locomotives out of South Africa, built in South Africa with an American license. So they will be, I think, delivered in Uganda in about a month's time. So that's a good success for us, a good start. But we would look at increasing that by establishing local manufacturing within East Africa in a collaborating arrangement with South African and other African players. Now, I will also go into the challenges that one has to overcome in order to do business with Uganda. This, as I mentioned earlier, Uganda is a landlocked country. So one of the major challenges that we face is the cost and convenience of transportation of imports and exports. Sometimes it takes twice or 3 times more to move goods from the coast into the interior than it takes from, say, Hong Kong or from a European port. And that's quite really a challenge because it shouldn't be the case. Whereas infrastructure exists that could allow movement of cargo into the interior in Kampala within 3 days of berthing at Mombasa or Dar es Salaam. Unfortunately, we have to take sometimes 10 to 30 days to get the goods in because of bottlenecks on the rail, bottlenecks in the port, problems with customs and other areas. So those are areas that have to be navigated. But also very important is to talk about the environment, the legal and other administrative environment that would allow us to trade with the other African countries. As every country will appreciate, we have got public procurement laws, but we also have customs and other legal requirements that those have to be. As a result, we have a common market with the Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. So we have a common tariff system. So anyone coming in would have to navigate over those tariffs to make sure that they do not exceed what the common tariffs would be in those countries. But as the African market opens up, we hope the tariff system will also be harmonized. I have uploaded to the administration a small document on the local content law or regulation and reservation scheme. Recently, in order to promote local industries and local enterprise, the government has put in place a reservation scheme for certain types of services and goods that if they can be provided in the country, at least 30% of all contracts must reserve that 30% for a local provider. Now, how do African countries come in here? If you are a member of the COMESA or East African Community, some of that might be considered local. But I think the best, if we are going to move forward as a continent, the best is to establish local collaborative enterprises in each other's states. All of you will know how the automotive industry around the world has worked to overcome local tariff and other restrictions. You provide maybe 30%, 40% of the production in the area. In this case, I would look at, say, a South African enterprise establishing local capacity in East Africa within Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda to supply the region. And especially when it comes to engineering and other plant, it's very important to have a local service provider to back up the after-sales service. In the railway industry, where our focus is mostly on rolling stock and support services, track engineering and construction, I would think that South Africa, Egypt, and maybe Morocco have an edge. This is an area where if we collaborated as these regions, we could create an impact playing with even external players, because I've seen over the last 10 years a lot of European, American, and Chinese companies are moving into the African market using South Africa as a gateway. So if we extend those capacities to other regions in East Africa, in West Africa, I think that would help us to break the competition. Finally, I want to talk about what specific areas present interest in Uganda Railways, and what are the conditions required for one to supply. The biggest potential, as I said, is in the track engineering and construction. You also have rolling stock supply and maintenance. So here, in order to qualify, you have got to satisfy the interoperability requirements. The Uganda Railways network is interconnected to Tanzania and Kenya rail network. So if you are supplying to Uganda market, you are actually supplying in conformance with the East African railway standards. We also look at sustainability of supply and technical support. It's very critical. We look at safety requirements. You have to look at for example, the braking system and the electrical systems. If you're going for electrical rolling stock, then long-term strategic relations. The railways in East Africa were built with the European backup, so we have long-term arrangements with them. So any African player would either build on those long-term or create similar long-term plans. An example in case is the Transnet Trans-African locomotive, which we have helped to in collaboratively to come up with a concept. Such an equipment would work well for East Africa and the rest of Africa because it has got the local needs in mind. In Uganda, there is also a regime for conformance inspections. This is done through appointed agents of the National Bureau of Standards, and that is very important for products that are going to be supplied long term to be locally certified through inspections and verifications. So that one needs to be prepared. Finally, I want to say that Uganda is a country that gives free opportunity, and we are glad to welcome any African player, but a lot of work has to be done, and we hope we can overcome that through collaboration. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kateeba. Thank you for a very informative presentation. I see we've got a couple of questions that have come through in the discussion group. I don't think we'll have a chance to cover all of them. Mr. Kateeba, if you are available, it would be fantastic if you can join us at one of the in the lounge at one of the tables, and then perhaps some of the delegates who really want to have a chat with you afterwards can do so. Perhaps we can identify table, let's say, I just want to have a quick look, table 44 as a place where people can meet with you afterwards, and you just press on the lounge button, scroll down to table 44 to join there. I want to remind everyone to please go to the polls to rate the speaker session, and then Mr. Kateeba, if we can perhaps answer one of the questions quickly. So the one is, what opportunities, from Lukono Sitole, he's asking what opportunities are available for private sector service providers in Uganda? So, for example, physical guardian of facilities and assets for individuals, business and government. Do you have any insights around that?
The private sector, Uganda Uganda's economy is largely private sector driven. From the 90s, we've gone into a system where most of the state-owned enterprises were privatized. However, infrastructure and other major projects are still largely in the hands of government for development, but operation is by private sector. The energy, telecommunications, we've had a go at the railways, but now it's back in the state hands, but it could go back to private after reinforcement. So there are opportunities for private sector. However, you have to, the best place to go is the Uganda Investment Authority. If you can look up the Uganda Investment Authority website, it will give you conditions of how to come in and what is required.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the feedback. We are out of time. Mr. Kateeba, if you can join us at table 44 in the lounge afterwards, we would be most grateful, and we can continue any discussions there. Otherwise, I encourage... Yes?
I've covered what was required.
Excellent. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Everyone can please leave